The first call came at 3 in the morning, then another, and another. By the 10th, my phone buzzed so violently it nearly slid off the nightstand. When I finally answered, Lauren Grant's voice, the CEO of Harbor Rise, trembled through the speaker. "Clara, please. The servers are down, donations frozen, the media's tearing us apart. We need you." For a second, I thought I was still dreaming. Yesterday, this same woman had given me 1 hour to pack my things and leave. Now she was begging me to save the company that had just erased me. I swung my legs out of bed, heart pounding, watching the streetlight flicker against the window. Somewhere downtown, their gleaming office tower was on fire, figuratively at least. The education campaign I'd built had gone viral overnight. Viewers flooded the site after my interview aired, but no one there knew how to handle the traffic. The donation system was dead, the database overloaded, and every headline in Boston was now asking one question. Where's the woman from Channel 7? That woman was me, and I was no longer their employee. My name is Clara Wynn, 41, communications architect, patient by nature, but patience has limits. Yesterday morning, Marta Hensley, my manager, had stopped by my desk wearing that smile she saved for sabotage. "You looked great on TV," she'd said, eyes glinting. "But next time, remember who runs this department." By noon, she'd convinced Lauren I'd violated media protocol. By 5, I was standing outside with a cardboard box, clutching 17 months of work in my hands while Marta discussed my project with the press team inside. Now it was 3 a.m., and every system she'd touched was crashing. I could almost hear the panic echoing through that pristine office. I looked down at the phone, Lauren's name still flashing, and let it ring. Once, twice. For the first time in a long while, I didn't rush to fix someone else's disaster, because before dawn, they were finally learning what it felt like to need me. And the story of how it came to this started with one televised smile. The morning light hit my kitchen window before my alarm did. I hadn't meant to wake early, but excitement has its own clock. My interview on Channel 7 was scheduled to air at 8, just a small segment on education access in Boston's inner-city schools, the program I had built from the ground up. By the time I poured my second cup of coffee, my phone was buzzing. "You're on," Ethan texted. "They used your full name and title." For a brief, shining moment, I felt proud. The footage showed me walking through a school library, explaining how our software helped students without internet access. It was the kind of story that made the endless nights of revisions worth it. When I got to the office, applause drifted from the hallway. Marta stood there, perfectly composed, phone in hand. "You looked great on TV," she said, smiling just a little too wide, really polished. "Thank you," I said, trying to match her tone. "But next time," she added, lowering her voice, "loop me in before you speak to press. You know how sensitive external communications can be." I blinked. Lauren approved the segment herself. "Still," Marta said, "it would have been nice to coordinate." The word coordinate sounded harmless, but her eyes didn't match it. By noon, my meeting invite for the donor briefing disappeared from my calendar. When I asked, Marta said she'd streamline the discussion without me. Later that afternoon, an internal memo about the campaign went out, my name nowhere on it. Ethan passed by my desk. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I lied, typing just to keep my hands busy. Marta's laughter floated down the hall, bright and brittle. She was already briefing the CEO, twisting her version of events into something I couldn't quite hear. That night, as the local station replayed the interview, I watched it again, searching for the moment things shifted. The instant pride turned into danger. It took less than a day for a smile to become a weapon. By Thursday afternoon, the air in the office felt heavier than usual, the kind of silence that meant something had been decided without me. My inbox showed 3 missed calls from Marta and 1 calendar update titled Urgent Compliance Review. When I stepped into the conference room, she was already there, sitting beside Lauren, our CEO. A printed report rested neatly in front of her, stapled and highlighted. "Clara, Lauren began. Her tone clipped. "We've received notice that your Channel 7 interview may have violated grant compliance terms with the Massachusetts Education Board." I stared at her. "That can't be right. The segment was pre-approved. I sent every talking point to your office." Marta spoke softly. Too softly. "You did send notes." "Yes, but the final broadcast mentioned data metrics from last quarter. Those were part of the grant's restricted materials. Even minor disclosures could risk the entire funding." "That's not true," I said, my voice tightening. "Those figures were already published in our annual report." Lauren didn't look at me. "The board expects a written response by tomorrow. For now, we need to demonstrate immediate corrective action." My pulse pounded in my ears. "You're firing me over a segment you approved." "It's not about blame," Marta interjected smoothly. "It's about containment. Containment." The word landed like a verdict. By the time HR arrived, my desk was already half cleared. People avoided eye contact as I walked back to my office. Ethan stood near the copier, frozen. "They said you breached contract," he whispered. "I didn't," I said quietly, pulling the small plant from my desk. "But that won't matter now." Through the glass partition, I saw Marta gesturing to the communications team, voice bright and urgent. She was leading a new meeting titled Damage Assessment and Next Steps. Outside, Boston's harbor glimmered against the fading light. Indifferent, inside, my career was already being rewritten, line by line, in someone else's words. The HR manager handed me a cardboard box and spoke as if reciting a policy manual. "You have 60 minutes to collect your belongings. Security will escort you out." Her voice trembled just enough to remind me she hated being the messenger. I nodded, my throat dry. 60 minutes is generous," I said. I walked back to my office, the sound of my heels dull against the carpet. My mug sat on the corner of my desk, white porcelain with fading blue letters that read, "Do good work." Next to it, a photo of my mother. She'd been the kind of woman who refused to ask twice for anything, especially respect. Lauren appeared in the doorway, arms folded. She didn't step inside. "I'm sorry, Clara," she murmured. "It's out of my hands." I looked at her. Really looked. Her perfect posture, her immaculate jacket, the faint smell of coffee and fear. "It's not out of your hands," I said quietly. "You just didn't want to use them." Her eyes flickered, but she said nothing. She turned away before the silence could settle. I began packing a few files I'd written, the plant Ethan had given me on my birthday, the framed certificate from the State Education Board signed by the same officials Marta now claimed I'd offended. Ethan appeared by the door, guilt written across his face. "They won't even let me download your templates," he whispered. "Don't," I told him. "Let them figure it out." When the security guard arrived, he hovered awkwardly as I sealed the box. I gave the room one last glance. It already looked like it belonged to someone else. At the elevator, Marta passed me without stopping. "Tough day," she said, the corner of her mouth curving upward. I met her eyes. "You'll regret this." "Marta, not because I'll fight you, but because you'll need me when it's too late." Her smile faltered for the first time. Outside, the Boston wind bit through my coat. Across the harbor, the office tower shimmered under its logo, bright and hollow. I tightened my grip on the box and kept walking. By midnight, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Notifications blurred into a single stream of sound mentions, tags, reposts. Someone had clipped my interview from Channel 7 and uploaded it to every social platform imaginable. The caption read, "This woman built a system that gives every child internet access. Why isn't she running the company within hours?" It had over 100,000 views, comments poured in teachers, parents, students thanking me by name. The kind of recognition I'd dreamed of came, but it came at the wrong time. I was no longer part of Harborize. At first. I laughed. Then I opened my inbox. 26 unread messages from journalists. 9 from schools asking if the donation portal was down. The last one, from an old sponsor. Read your site crashed. Should we redirect funds to your personal account? I froze. The site shouldn't have crashed, not unless someone had broken it. Marta must have revoked my credentials, locked everyone out, and tried to run the system manually. That was suicide for the architecture. The next notification wasn't a tag. It was a call. Lauren Grant. I let it ring. Then another call. Then a message. Clara, please, we can't process a single payment. News outlets are asking for you. The governor's office just called. The irony twisted inside me like a blade. Yesterday, I was a liability. Tonight, I was a missing firewall. Ethan texted next. They're panicking. Marta's pretending she knows what to do, but everything's frozen. The press is outside. I typed back, tell them not to touch a thing, then deleted it. Not yet. I poured a glass of wine and sat by the window. Outside, the harbor shimmered under the moonlight, calm and unbothered. Somewhere in that glittering skyline, the company was burning from the inside out. My phone buzzed again. Lauren, this time calling from a different number. I watched it light up the room, the name reflected on the glass. The woman they fired for being too visible was now the only one anyone could see. At 3:17 in the morning, I finally answered. Lauren's voice cracked before she even said hello. Clara, thank God, everything's down. We can't process donations. We can't access the back end, and Marta's. She stopped herself, then exhaled. Please, I don't care what it takes. We need you. I leaned back against the couch, letting her words settle. You already told me what it takes, I said softly. Yesterday. 60 minutes to erase me. Silence stretched across the line. I could hear the frantic clatter of keyboards in the background, the echo of panic. Clara, she tried again. I made a mistake, but if we don't get the system up before sunrise, we could lose the entire state partnership. I kept my tone even. If I help you, I have conditions. I'll sign whatever you want, she said too quickly. Not whatever, I corrected. First, a written statement clearing my record no violation, no misconduct. Second, full public acknowledgement as the project's architect. Third, the donation fund must be restored for every school affected by tonight's shutdown. No rebranding, no PR spin. She hesitated. That's a lot to commit to at 3 a.m. So is losing $3 million in grant renewals before breakfast. I heard her whisper something to someone off screen. A muffled argument followed. Then she came back on. Fine. Done. Just please. Tell me what to do. Nothing yet, I said. Tell your team to stop touching the servers. Every key they press is making it worse. I'll need remote access reinstated within 15 minutes and written confirmation of my conditions by email. Her breath hitched. You'll have it. I hung up before she could thank me. Outside, the harbor lights were dimming into dawn. My laptop hummed to life as I connected to the system I'd built my fingerprints still in every line of code they thought they owned. The power was back in my hands, and this time, it was on my terms. By dawn, the city was gray and cold. I arrived at Harbor Rise with a printed one-day consultant contract in my bag and my own terms waiting in Lauren's inbox. The guard at the front desk gave me a quick, uneasy nod everyone must have known by now. Inside, chaos pulsed through every hallway. Phones rang without answer. Screens blinked red. Half the staff crowded around the conference table, whispering about headlines they couldn't control. Marta stood in the middle of it all, clutching a tablet, barking orders to no one in particular. Check the proxy logs again, she snapped. And someone call the PR firm. I want a new statement drafted within the hour. Lauren spotted me before Marta did. Clara, thank God. She crossed the room. You have full clearance. The team will follow your direction. Marta turned sharply. Her direction, Lauren. She doesn't even work here anymore. Not true, I said, setting down my laptop. I do for one day. And in that one day, you're going to let me fix what you broke. The room went still. I sat, opened the laptop and began typing. The system logs were a mess, layers of overwritten commands, failed attempts to patch the donation portal manually. Within minutes, I found the issue. They'd disabled the load balancer entirely, forcing every request through one channel. Who thought this was a good idea? I asked. Eyes still on the screen. Marta's voice cracked. We were under pressure. I did what I thought was best. I glanced up. You shut off the safety valves and then wondered why it flooded. Lauren stepped in quietly. Just fix it. Clara. By 11:30. The site was stable again. Donations processed normally. Social media feeds turned from outrage to gratitude. A reporter outside shouted through the glass. Is it true she's the woman who saved the campaign? I didn't look up from the keyboard. No, I said softly. I just made sure my work didn't die with my job. Behind me, Marta said nothing. For the first time since I'd met her, she had nothing left to command. By that afternoon, the crisis had shifted shape from disaster control to damage repair. Reporters filled the lobby, cameras glinting like flashbulbs from another life. Lauren's assistant appeared at my desk with a nervous smile. Channel 7 requested a live update. They want you on camera again. I glanced up from my laptop. You mean the same station that got me fired? She hesitated. They're calling you the face of transparency. Lauren thinks it's time to lean into that. When I stepped into the studio an hour later, the air hummed with that same sterile tension I remembered. Lights too bright, microphones too close. Lauren stood beside me, composed, rehearsed. Clara Wynn, she told the host, was the strategist behind Harborize's education initiative, the same system that helped us recover from last night's outage. Her voice was smooth, but her eyes flickered toward me with something that almost looked like apology. The host turned. Clara, the public wants to know, what do you take from all this? I could feel every eye in the control room on me, waiting to see whether I would blame or forgive. My pulse steadied. A strong company, I said, isn't one that never errs. It's one that admits mistakes in daylight. The sentence hung there for a beat before the host smiled. Lauren exhaled softly beside me. Within minutes, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Ethan's message flashed, trending. You just saved them again. Outside the studio glass, I caught a reflection of Marta lingering near the exit, arms crossed, jaw tight. For the first time, she didn't meet my eyes. She turned and walked away before the segment ended. When the lights dimmed, the producer shook my hand. That line brilliant. It's everywhere already, Lauren murmured. You were right about everything. I closed my laptop slowly. You'll put that in writing. Then, she nodded, and for once, didn't argue. The cameras cooled. The applause faded, and the truth I'd spoken on air echoed longer than either of us expected. The building felt strangely quiet that evening, as if the chaos had finally burned itself out. I was gathering my things when the elevator door slid open and Marta stepped out. She looked different, hair undone, eyes rimmed red. Security lingered a few feet behind her, holding a cardboard box just like the one I'd carried out 2 nights ago. She stopped in front of me. You think you've won! Her voice trembled, trying to sound sharp and failing. You ruined my career. I set my laptop on the counter. I didn't ruin it. Marta, you did when you mistook control for leadership. Her jaw tightened. You think you're better than me because you were on television. Because Lauren needed you for one night, I think I did my job, I said evenly. And I didn't need to step on anyone to do it. She laughed once, hollow and tired. You have no idea what it's like being overlooked, fighting twice as hard to prove yourself. I met her eyes. I do know. I just chose not to fight by destroying someone else. For a moment. She said nothing. The security guard shifted his weight. Uncomfortable. Lauren appeared from down the hall, clipboard in hand. Her tone was calm, but final. Marta, your exit paperwork is complete. HR will finish the deactivation process downstairs. Marta turned to her. After everything I did for this company, Lauren cut her off. After everything Clara did for this company, you should be thanking her for leaving you with something to rebuild." The guard gestured toward the elevator. Marta hesitated, then took the box. As she passed me, her perfume lingered too strong, fading fast. She didn't look back when the doors closed. I stood there for a long time, the silence of the floor pressing around me. I thought I might feel triumphant, but instead I felt light, like something heavy had finally fallen away. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying anyone else's mistakes. A month later, Boston had thawed into spring. The harbor was no longer a sheet of gray glass, but moving water, bright and alive. From my new office window, the city looked different, still sharp, still fast, but no longer something I had to survive. I'd joined a nonprofit media collective that told stories about education and equity, the kind of work I'd always believed in before Harbor Rise forgot what that word meant. My name was printed on the door, Clara Wynn, Director of Communications. It looked simple, but it felt like something hard-won. My phone buzzed on the desk. Unknown number. I answered. "Ms. Wynn, this is Julia from Channel 7. We're producing a segment on resilience in leadership. Would you consider an interview?" I smiled. "You do realize your last segment nearly got me fired." There was a nervous laugh. "Yes, and maybe that's what makes this one worth hearing from you." I looked at the stack of proposals waiting for review, the calendar blocked with school visits, the framed photo of the first classroom our campaign had funded after the crash. "All right," I said. "On one condition, everything stays off the record until I approve the final cut." "Of course," she said quickly. "That's perfectly fair." After the call, I leaned back and let the moment breathe. The same studio lights that once exposed me now wanted my permission to shine. Ethan stopped by the doorway, holding 2 coffees. "You're trending again," he said with a grin. "Different reason this time. Donors are quoting your line about admitting mistakes." Then it finally landed, I said, taking the cup. He nodded toward the window. "How's it feel?" I thought of Marta's glare, Lauren's apology, the night the phones wouldn't stop ringing. "Like starting over," I said. But this time, on my terms, outside. A gull swept across the harbor, its wings cutting through the bright air. The company that once tried to erase me was still standing somewhere behind me, but smaller now, distant. They hadn't ended my story. They'd just proven they were never big enough to hold it.